I'm a 32-year-old guy who generally considers himself pretty laid back, but everyone has their breaking point, right? I have a steady job, take care of my bills, and mostly keep to myself. For the past 2 years, I've been in a relationship with my girlfriend. Let's call her G. Things between us weren't perfect, but they were good enough that I began to imagine a future together. A few months ago, G started talking about taking a real vacation, a proper getaway, not just a short road trip. Cancun seemed like the perfect destination. Sunshine, beaches, and the chance to unwind. It sounded like exactly what we needed. We flew out on a Friday morning, and G was unusually cheerful, almost giddy. At the time, I chalked it up to her excitement for the trip. But looking back, there were small warning signs I ignored. For example, she was glued to her phone the entire flight, always tilting the screen away when I glanced over. I joked, "What's so urgent that you can't unplug for a couple of hours?" She waved it off, saying it was just work stuff. By the time we landed, I convinced myself I was overthinking things. The first 2 days went well enough. We spent time by the pool, explored local restaurants, and took cheesy vacation photos like any other couple. But by day 3, something felt off. G kept stepping away to take work calls, which felt strange for someone who had insisted on unplugging and relaxing. That afternoon, she said she was going to check out some shops down the street. "Want to come?" she asked. I was lounging by the pool, cocktail in hand, feeling lazy. "Nah, I'm good. Bring me something fun," I said. She smiled, but it wasn't her usual smile. It was forced, almost like she was relieved that I declined. Something about her energy didn't sit right with me. I'm not the suspicious type, but something pushed me to follow her. After about 10 minutes, I got up and headed toward the shops. It didn't take long to spot her. She was sitting at a coffee shop, but she wasn't alone. Across from her was a man I recognized immediately, her ex. They were laughing like they shared some inside joke. Let me pause here and explain. G had a complicated history with this guy. They were on and off for years before we met, and she'd sworn to me that it was over. She even showed me texts where she told him to leave her alone. Seeing them together now felt like a punch to the gut. I didn't want to confront her then and there. I wasn't ready to cause a scene. Instead, I stayed back and discreetly snapped a few photos with my phone for evidence. My heart raced, but I forced myself to stay calm. I followed them from a distance as they left the coffee shop and strolled to a nearby park. They looked comfortable together, too comfortable. At one point, she even hugged him before they parted ways. I could have confronted her in that moment, but I chose not to. I wanted to see just how far this went. When she returned to the hotel, she was all smiles. The shops were great. "I got you this." She handed me a cheesy souvenir keychain. "Thanks," I said, forcing a smile. "Looks like you had fun." "Yeah, it was nice to get out for a bit," she replied, without a flicker of guilt. That night, while she was in the shower, I did something I never thought I would do. I went through her phone. I know it wasn't the right thing, but I needed answers. What I found confirmed everything. Their texts revealed they'd been planning this for weeks. The vacation wasn't just a getaway for us. It was a cover for her to meet him. She told him she missed him, that she still thought about him, and that she needed closure. Closure? Seriously? I barely slept that night, but by morning I had a plan. The next day, I acted like everything was fine. We went snorkeling, had lunch, and even took a walk on the beach at sunset. But the whole time, I was mentally preparing my next move. That evening, I told her I wasn't feeling well and wanted to stay in. She seemed disappointed but didn't push. "I might head out for a bit," she said casually. "Sure," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. As soon as she left, I sprang into action. I packed my things, called the airline, and booked the next flight home. Then I went to the front desk and canceled our room, citing an emergency. By the time she returned to the hotel around midnight, I was already gone. I left her a note. "Gee, I know about your little reunion with her ex's name. Hope it was worth it. The room is canceled, and I'm on a flight back home. Good luck sorting this out. Was it harsh? Maybe. But she deserved it. On the flight home, I replayed the past 2 years in my head, realizing how many red flags I'd ignored. Secretive texts, flimsy excuses, and the way she downplayed her history with her ex. I felt like an idiot for not seeing it sooner, but more than anything, I felt relieved. When I landed, I blocked her on everything: phone, social media, email. I didn't want to hear her excuses. A few days later, I never heard from her again. Mutual friends began reaching out to me after everything went down. Apparently, G had been calling them in tears, claiming I abandoned her in Mexico. One of them asked me, "Didn't she tell you why?" I replied, "No," and sent them the screenshots and photos. That quickly shut down any defenses they had. The fallout for G was intense. She had to scramble to book a last-minute flight home, which cost her a fortune. Her ex completely ghosted her as soon as he learned what happened, and her friends started distancing themselves as the truth spread. As for me, I'm doing great. Better than great. Actually, ending that relationship was the smartest thing I've ever done. If there's one lesson here, it's this: trust your instincts and never let anyone take advantage of you. I didn't expect much more drama beyond what I'd already experienced, but G wasn't the type to let things go quietly. About a week after I returned home, I received an email from an unfamiliar address. It didn't take long to figure out it was her. The email was a mess, full of half-hearted apologies, flimsy excuses, and outright lies. She claimed meeting her ex was a spur-of-the-moment decision and insisted she hadn't meant for it to happen. She begged me to talk to her, swearing I had misunderstood everything. Misunderstood? I had photos. I had texts. What was there to misunderstand? I ignored her email completely. A couple of days later, one of her friends called me. Someone I'd always been on good terms with. "You really hurt her," they said. "Hurt her?" I replied incredulously. "Do you even know what she did?" "She told me she met her ex, but it wasn't what you think. She just wanted to clear the air," the friend explained. "Clear the air?" I echoed, my voice dripping with sarcasm, because sneaking around and hugging him screams honesty, right? I forwarded them the same screenshots I had shared with others. The conversation ended quickly after that. For a while, I thought that would be the last I'd hear from her, but G wasn't done. She started spinning a new story where I was a villain. According to her, I was controlling, paranoid, and ruined the vacation because I couldn't handle her being friends with her ex. She even accused me of stealing her belongings when I left, an absurd claim, considering I barely had time to pack my own things. She took her lies to social media, painting herself as the victim of my so-called jealous rage. I didn't care about her falsehoods, but what I didn't expect was how far she would go. One morning, I woke up to a text from my boss. "Can you call me?" he asked. I called immediately. "What's going on?" I asked. "We got an email from someone claiming you've been acting erratically and might pose a danger to the team," he said. It included screenshots of text where you supposedly admitted to being unstable. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "None of that's true," I said, trying to steady my voice. "We figured as much," my boss reassured me. "But HR needs you to come in and address it." When I saw the email, my stomach dropped. G had created fake screenshots to make it look like I had been ranting and making threats. The forgeries were sloppy, full of typos and strange formatting, but they were still disturbing. Thankfully, my boss and HR dismissed it as a hoax, but the damage was done. My reputation had taken a hit, and I knew exactly who was responsible. That was the last straw. If G wanted to fight, she had picked the wrong person. I consulted a lawyer, laid out everything: her lies, the fake screenshots, and her attempt to jeopardize my job. The lawyer recommended sending her a cease and desist letter, which I did immediately. I had it delivered by a process server to drive the point home. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. She texted me from a new number, ranting in all caps about how I was overreacting and ruining her life. "You're doing that yourself," I replied, before blocking her again. Then I got strategic. G had always been a bit too open about her life on social media. It didn't take long to find posts and comments that revealed her true colors. She had bragged about conning people, flaking on commitments, and even hinted at sabotaging other relationships. I saved everything, not to use immediately, but as a precaution in case she escalated further. And escalate she did. When she realized the legal threat was serious, she tried to turn more of our mutual friends against me. She claimed the cease and desist letter was an attempt to silence her, but most of our friends were already on my side. They had seen the evidence. The backlash hit her hard. People started confronting her publicly, questioning her lies about the vacation, the texts, and me. Some unfollowed her online, while others cut her off completely. The final blow came from her ex. Apparently, he had no idea she was in a relationship when they met up in Cancun. After finding out, he posted a scathing rant online, calling her a manipulative liar and warning others to steer clear of her. It was brutal and well-deserved. By the time the dust settled, G's reputation was in ruins. She deleted all her social media accounts and disappeared. I heard through the grapevine that she moved to another city, but by then, I didn't care. Revenge isn't always the answer, but in this case, it felt justified. She tried to destroy my life, and all I did was expose the truth. Looking back, I'm grateful for everything that happened. It taught me to trust my instincts and never settle for someone who doesn't respect me.